Okay, someone asked me about the leather that I use, that they was having problems with choosing their leather because they said it's either too thick or it's too thin. And if I could explain how I go by choosing my leather. One of the things that I do is that, and this is just came from experience. When I first started, I would choose leather because of I like the color of it, or I like the print on it, I like the price of it. You know, I had every other reason to make a choice for buying the leather except for what I was going to use it for. So now what I've learned to do is when I go out to purchase leather, I will purchase it because I know what I'm going to make out of it. Now, on the other side of that, if I go into the leather store and they have some leather that I think is unique and different, and I think that once it's gone, I will not see it again, I will go ahead and buy it. And I know I can make something out of it. But if I'm looking to make a particular project, well then I'm going to go after the leather that I need in order to do that. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now, leather is sold and purchased by the square foot, which is the size of it, and it's also sold and purchased by the thickness of it. And they call it by the ounce. A lot of times when we look at ounce, we're thinking about liquid, but with leather, it's the thickness. This is a thickness gauge. You know, I bought it. I never use it, but it's good to have, because if I'm using some leather and I need to go and purchase some leather and I need for it to be that at least close to that thickness, well then I can take a measurement and I know what the thickness is. For example, this leather here is 1 ounce. Now let's take this leather. This leather here, at this point, it's 1 3/4 ounce. If I measured here, it's closer to, it's about the same. And what can happen is that on the edge of the leather, it can be thinner than what it is more in the center of the leather. More in the center of the leather can be thicker than around the edges. So, for example, with this bag, I used this leather here, which was my lining, and this is 3/4 inch, 3/4 ounce. It's not even a full ounce. Now for the primer, which is the outside, this is 1.5 ounces. So it's a little more than 2.5 ounce thick with both pieces together. So to explain to you why I use the leather that I did, for example, one of the main reasons that I make my choices is, will the leather that I'm going to use, if I'm going to put a gusset in here, will it turn this corner? Will I be able to sew around this corner? Because that's going to be the test. You can sew it straight. You can sew around, for example, around your flap. I mean, you can sew around here. You know, it doesn't matter if the leather is stiff or if it doesn't have any resistance. But this is going to be your test when you have to sew around this gusset, whether it's you're sewing it inside or outside the way this is sewn. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's use this for an example. Let's say that if this right here is the back side of the bag, and we're going to put a gusset around it. Now this leather here is very soft. It doesn't really have resistance to it. This leather is just as thin as this one, but it does have resistance. You know, if I see how stiff that is, that's what I mean by resistant. If I take this, see how that just bend down, and this one, you know, is stiff. That's your test right there. If it's stiff like that, you don't want to use that if you're going to use it. If you're making a bag that have a gusset, or you're making something that you're going to have to do some type of fold to it. Even for example, like these two watch bands. This one is just a straight cut. You know what? I can use this leather if I'm going to make this. It's just a straight cut. This one has a fold to it. This one would not be good to use because I'm going to have to fold it and sew it. I could fold it and sew it, but when I wear it, right around here, it will not have a good feel to it because it's going to be too stiff. You know, it's like wearing a shirt and the collar is too tight. That's what this would feel like around your wrist. Now, if we're going to put a gusset around here, well then you want to use a leather that is going to give. Let's say we take these two pieces, we put them together, and then I'm going to use it as a gusset. So I'll take this. I'm just going to kind of give you an idea of how this will work. Now with this, I would have no problem sewing around here, but because this will lay down for me, I'll have no problem sewing around that. But if I was going to use this leather here, let's say we take this one, we put it together, and this was going to be our gusset. It'll turn the corner fine. It turned the corner fine, but where the problem is going to come is when you're trying to sew around this. This right here would just be too stiff to sew around it. So it's the same thing if you have, let's take an example. If you have two thick pieces of leather together and you put this around here and you're trying to sew around it, that's where your problem is going to come. And if you're going to use a thick leather, use a thin leather as your lining. Now if you're making a bag and it have a fabric lining, well then you can use a thick leather, and because you only use it's only one piece there, so you're able to turn this corner and sew it. So you would really learn to know when something is too thick or it is too stiff. I just want to give you another example. This is a cowhide with the hair on. Whenever you're buying one of these, one thing that you want to do is make sure that if you're buying it and you're going to make nothing but like clutch bags or something like this, if it's stiff, this is very stiff. It's very stiff. If it's stiff, it's okay because you know what, you're going to be doing something like clutch bags or messenger bag that doesn't have a gusset. But if you're planning on using it for clutch bag and also you're going to make bags that have a gusset in it, this one right here is very, very soft. You know, it's very soft. There's no resistance. Your best choice is to always buy one that is very soft and it's not stiff, because in that way you can use it for if you want to make clutch bags or tote bags, whatever you want to make out of it, you can, because it's very soft. With one that is stiff, you're going to be limited to what you can do with it. So when you're buying the hair-on cowhide, you will be limited if you buy one that is stiff. But if you get one that is soft, you can do a lot more with it. So my advice to you is that never put two thin pieces together and never put two thick pieces together. I hope this video answers some of your questions. I know it's not going to answer all of your questions, and I know there are some things that I overlooked, and as I think about it, I will go back and make a video on it. And if you have any more questions or anything that you think I could cover, just let me know, and I will. And you know, one of the things that we're trying to do is that we're trying to develop a online educational channel. And one of the things that we would like for you to give us a help with is to pass this on. If you have comments, write it, good or bad, send us a comment and let us know what we can do to make it better, because what we want to do, we want to try and help educate the world. We know there's people that do not have the money or the time to go to school, but we have the wisdom and knowledge, and we have no problem with sharing that and passing it on to someone else. So if you know someone that you think will enjoy these videos, share it with them. And again, thank you for supporting us by watching and commenting. And we'll be making the next one soon.